If I can show you how to take that same 10 people and close at 30%, we just got 2 more sales a day for you without spending any more on ads. Once you max out what your conversion rate is, that's when you pour money into ads. So there's a disconnect that a lot of people have in business. They just spend more money on ads because they play quote unquote the numbers game. So the more people they talk to, you talk to 100, you close 1. That's the structure that a lot of people teach. And I'm like, no, try to close 100%. But let's not focus on talking to more people until we maximize the actual close rate that we can with the amount of people we're currently talking to.
Hello, Boyd, my man. It's so nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me, Elijah. I appreciate it.
Beautiful,
Looking
my
forward to it.
man. Yeah, man. And thank you so very much for being here. You see, I truly appreciate you. Yeah, man. And you see, Boyd, oftentimes I love to thank my guest for 2 things. And I do this so often to the point where it has become my anthem. So, firstly, Boyd, I want to say thank you so very much for investing in yourself. You see, you are on this platform right now because you did invest that in yourself. And oftentimes, my man, I love to make reference to the amazing mango tree. You see, Boyd, some couple of months back, I was on a particular road, and just by the roadside, there was this very tall, unattractive mango tree. And I use the word unattractive because the mango tree's got no mangoes on it, and the leaves were all dry. So I just walked past it and I went my way. But you see, Boyd, just recently I was on that same road, and this time around, a lot's changed about the mango tree, you see. The mango tree caught my attention pretty good from a distance, and immediately I got the urge to move so close to it, of which I did, and it wowed me. Because now the mango tree's got a lot of mangoes on it, beautiful green leaves and healthy branches. And not just mangoes now, Boyd, I'm talking about ripe mangoes. It was such a lovely experience that day, and I was so excited. Here is my point. The fact that you dedicated your time, energy, and resources to becoming the amazing Boyd that you are today, that alone has made it impossible for me to skip you. And that's why you got the request from me to be on the show, because I was attracted to the fruit of all that you're doing, your philosophies, your insights, the impact your work is having, and how you are offering your solutions, Boyd. These stuff's so beautiful. And just before I sent you that request, my man, I said to myself, I've got to benefit from these beautiful things Boyd is doing. And not only me now, because I don't want to be selfish, and even with the audience. And here we had a day with the amazing Boyd. So thank you so very much for doing that to yourself, my man. And secondly, thank you for saying yes to the invite. Because if you had said nope, there was nothing Elisha could do about it. Thanks so much, my man.
No, I appreciate the kind words. Thank you. Like I said earlier, I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Beautiful, and I love that. So let's get started. You see, I am quite excited to have you on the show today, Boyd, for some reasons. Firstly, my interest in knowledge seeking. I believe in order for one to transition from a terrible situation to that of a beautiful one, Boyd, I believe it takes the application of knowledge, quality information, and not just knowledge now, but the application of it. And you see, my man, ever since I discovered that light in the Hebrew means knowledge and darkness ignorance, I've been so keen to knowledge seeking. Why? Because I do not want to remain in the dark. So that's going to make our conversation today very important to me and even to the listeners. And the second reason why I'm excited to have the amazing Boyd on the show is for the sake of the audience. You see, Boyd, we live in an age where information is as abundant as grains of sand. We've got lots of informations flying out there. So those folks trust me for quality, eye-opening, and very important information, of which I am totally convinced, my man, that our conversation is going to be insightful and impactful. So for that reason, Boyd, let's get started with your introduction. Talk to us about your personal or the professional journey, because right now we are so curious. We want to know how Boyd got here. Then afterwards, I've gotten some beautiful questions for you. Okay, Boyd, my man, over to you.
Yeah, so my career in entrepreneurship slash sales started roughly 20 years ago. I was sitting in my room in Gilbert, Arizona, not making much money, not making much impact. And I got a call from my brother, and he's telling me what he's up to. And he was traveling the world, doing workshops and doing seminars with a lot of companies. And I was like, man, that sounds awesome. Can you get me an interview? And long story short, there went through the interview process, got the job, and they sent me out to Vancouver, British Columbia. And I just started doing consultations and doing sales and started out doing really, really well. And just naturally having natural conversations. And a couple weeks into my career, they came to me and they said, hey, we want you to follow this script. And I thought, okay, well, if you're my boss and you're telling me that, I'll follow the script. Well, the script wasn't natural for me, and my sales started to go down significantly. And then they came to me and said, hey, if your sales don't go back up, we're going to have to let you go. And so I'm at a crossroads. Do I go back to just being naturally who I am, or do I follow this script that just does not fit me? It's not my vibe. It's not my energy. I come across as canned and just very, very, let's just say, unempathetic. It was not a good flow for me at all. So I just dumped the script and I went back to doing what I do best. Now, there was a moment in time where I thought, well, I still have to better my craft. And so I started to develop the sales system that I have today that I teach and I help people understand. It's nothing to do with the script. It's about structure and it's about flow. And it's about understanding where you're at in the sales conversation and what questions to ask, but not just what questions to ask, how to ask them, because tonality matters. And so a lot of people don't teach tonality, and a lot of salespeople just come across as very monotone or way too high energy, and it pushes people back. It makes them feel somewhat uncomfortable. And in a sales situation, the more comfortable you can make someone feel, the more likely they're going to buy into the conversation that you're having. So over 20 years, I perfected what I call the closed formula. And it's just simple steps with simple questions in each step that you ask, and you follow a simple system. And it allows you to stay natural. It allows you to have a simple conversation that doesn't sound canned or scripted, because it's not. The flow is scripted, but the conversation is not. And so that's where I'm at in my career at this point in time. I've sold a lot, I've done a lot of things, but I realize that there's something missing in the sales industry, in the business world, specifically for coaches, consultants, and small business owners. They go out there and they have a good product, but no one ever really teaches them how to sell. So they spend more money on advertising, they drive more leads, they get more traffic, but their conversion rate stays the same. So for me, I'm like, well, if you can only talk to 10 people a day and your conversion rate is 10%, if I can show you how to take that same 10 people and close at 30%, we just got 2 more sales a day for you without spending any more on ads. Once you max out what your conversion rate is, that's when you pour money into ads. And so there's a disconnect that a lot of people have in business. They just spend more money on ads because they play, quote unquote, the numbers game, right? So the more people they talk to, you talk to 100, you close 1. That's the structure that a lot of people teach. And I'm like, no, try to close 100%. We're never going to get there. But let's not focus on talking to more people until we maximize the actual close rate that we can with the amount of people we're currently talking to. And so that's where I'm at in my career at this point in time. There's a lot of story in between there, I know. But in the interest of time, I summarized a lot of my journey just to get to the point that I help people understand how to sell through empathy and authority to create a better connection and just an overall better sales environment for the people that they're working with.
Amazing. Once you max out what your conversion rate is, that's when you spend money on ads. I got that. In the part where
No, and that's a very
yeah,
valuable point, and I hope
yeah,
everybody understands that.
yeah, in the part where you talked about tonality. I've never heard anyone talk about that, in the context of marketing. And that's very, very profound. Thank you for sharing
Yeah,
that.
Most people stay stuck in just being monotone and scripted, and they'll close the people that are interested in buying, but they're not going to close the people that are on the fence. And that's why
Wow.
they always say it's a numbers game, because most people truly don't understand how to sell. They understand how to regurgitate information. They understand how to go through a script and give them information so they can make a decision. But the vast majority of people have about a 10 to 12, maybe 13% close rate. And that's basically the amount of people that are going to buy no matter what. There's always a percentage of people that are going to buy no matter how bad you are at sales. They're just that right person. So that's why so many people in the sales industry or in business in general always talk about a numbers game. You got to talk to more people. You got to talk to more people. I'm all about maximizing the people you talk to so you can have quality of life, meaning you're not spending 16, 18 hours a day on the phone trying to talk to the right amount of people. You're closing the people you're talking to in the time frame you want to work.
Amazing, amazing. So you said while you were working the job that you had to follow, you were instructed to follow this particular script that was unempathetic and it affected your sales. So I wanted to ask, how can empathy change the way people sell or lead?
Yeah, great question. And I appreciate that. When somebody feels understood, they buy in. Put yourself into a situation, whether you've ever been married in a relationship of any kind, and let's say you're in an argument and your spouse says, hey, I need help with the dishes, and you just come back and say, I always do the dishes. That creates a very combative relationship versus, hey, I need help with the dishes. You follow that up with empathy. Babe, I understand, or honey, I understand, or whoever it is. You start with understanding. That's how you develop empathy. Now, the problem is with empathy is if we're both just sitting in empathy, no one's leading. So we can't stay in empathy. We have to follow up the fact that we demonstrated empathy with authority. And what do I mean by that? Authority allows you then to say, hey, Elijah, I know where you're at, empathy, and I know how to get you out of it, authority. If you can demonstrate that in the beginning of a sales conversation, you now have them bought in to hear more of what you have to say. I consider it basically bringing them into their story, helping them understand the story that they want to be a part of. Not my story, their story. I understand their situation, and I've helped people just like you get out of the problem that you're in. Then they give you natural permission to tell them how. And when you get that permission, you're not pulling them along, you're guiding them along. So we got to go from empathy to demonstrating authority so we get their permission to continue the conversation.
From empathy to authority. Hmm, I got that. So let us talk about trust, all right? How can someone build instant trust in a conversation?
So trust, I think, is really demonstrated. The most powerful way to do that is through a story. Not a story of your journey, but a story of you helping somebody just like them, or a story of you going through that exact moment. Because nobody remembers what you say, they only remember how you made them feel. So 15 minutes after the call, they can't tell you what was said, but they can tell you how they feel. And so story allows them to then buy into your trust. You've been there, you've done that. That's why there's testimonials. That's why there's so many things online saying, hey, reviews, whatever it is. That's the quote unquote story element of building trust. But in sales, you don't send them to a review. You have to tell them a story. And that's where the authority comes into play. So once you've developed authority, you build that authority by sharing quote unquote relatable stories, either of yourself or of people you have helped that have had their exact same problem.
Okay, so let's look at your own favorite story, that helped you close a deal. You've got any?
My favorite story? Yeah, my favorite
Yeah.
story is helping people understand that when I became an entrepreneur, nobody told me how to do it. So I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know how to market. I didn't know how to do anything. So I sought out coaching to help people that have already been there, done that, teach me how to do what I needed to do. The biggest lesson that I ever learned in business is somebody already knows what needs to be done. I can spend 6 months figuring it out or spend 6 minutes having a conversation with somebody who already has. So always be willing to seek out guidance from someone who has already been where you want to go.
Seek out guidance from someone who has already been where you want to go. That's a profound
Because
one.
there's two ways to gain experience. We can go gain experience through our own efforts, or we can ask the question of somebody who already has that experience and apply what they tell you.
Hmm,
So
hmm,
one requires 6 months, 6 years, whatever that time frame is. I can never give the specific answer on, well, how long does it take individuals to gain experience? We're all different. But I know this, if I can walk up to you, for example, and ask you a question on how do I establish a successful podcast, you could tell me how to do that in 10 to 15 minutes, or I can watch a bunch of YouTube videos that confuse me even more. And I'm going to spend 6 months trying to figure out how to start a successful podcast.
hmm. That's so true. And I got that. So, what inspired you to create the closed formula? That's CLOSED formula.
So it inspired me from the beginning for myself, my own internal ability to have better sales conversations. Because I always felt that I hated sales from a traditional sales standpoint. I always hated that feeling of trying to convince you to buy my product. I always felt like I sold good product, but there was always a disconnect there.
Yeah.
Well, the closed formula was 100% designed so that you and I could just have a natural conversation about the product versus me scripting a script that takes you through a sales process. And the only thing you're thinking of is how much, how much,
Hmm.
So the closed formula was designed for me on a personal level. And over COVID, when my industry shut down and I couldn't go speak to crowds and I couldn't talk to a bunch of people, is when I finally slowed down in life and went, there's something missing in the sales industry. There's that disconnect between empathy and authority. And I started piecing it all together. And I thought, you know what? I need to put this in writing. I need to put this in a course. I need to put this in a framework that I can deliver to other people so that they can follow. So the last 5 years, I've taken, prior to that, my 15 years of experience, now my 20 years of experience. But over the last 5 years, I've refined it to the point where I now fully understand how to help people figure out the closed formula that they can apply in any industry. It doesn't matter what sell you're doing, whether it's a door-to-door sale, whether it's a one-on-one consultation, whether you're in car sales or whether you're in insurance, you have to understand that person doesn't really care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I know that's a popular saying, but if you apply that in sales, your sale becomes so much easier. The resistance goes down, the refund rate drops dramatically. I talk to a lot of people in sales and they love to brag about their close rate. And then I talk to them about their sales process and it's very aggressive. I always love to hear, well, what's your cancellation rate? Like, how many of those people are you selling or actually canceling? Because a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still. And that is the premise of everything that I teach. I don't want you to convince anybody that your product is the best. I want to help you help them decide for themselves that your product or service is the best.
Hmm.
And if they come to their own conclusion, they're not canceling. They will not cancel because they chose. But you can be an aggressive sales type personality. You can be combative and you can be that big type personality. And I have the ability to do that. I know I'm capable of it. But I also know that my cancellation rate went from 33% down to 3. And so you work your tail off to get the sale, and there's nothing more frustrating in a sale than having them cancel. Because you work so hard for it, you're thinking, oh, I just made some really good money, and then you get a cancellation notice. So to me, it's not about just having the sale. It's about having them happy they made the purchase. You want to get a text message in 24 hours, 72 hours saying thank you, not you jerk.
I tell you, and this is a beautiful perspective, and I love the fact that you decided to, put your solution in materials, and that's so beautiful. So to bring this to an end, my man, what would you like to leave the audience with? Like a final thought. And to those folks who would like to reach out to you, learn more about the beautiful stuff you're doing, or even make use of your formula or get your product, how can that be possible?
Yeah. So the one thing that I try to just help everybody understand is sales is not about being aggressive. It's not about having the gift of gab. It's not about having this big type of personality that most people assume you have to have in sales, which is why most people hate sales because they feel they have to become somebody that they're not. And I always try to help emphasize you're good enough. Who you are, you're good at sales if you learn a simple system, which I call the closed formula. It allows you to know when to ask the right questions at the right time and in the right tonality. And then it allows you to simply overcome objections throughout the conversation because the best time to overcome an objection is before they have it. So if you learn how to overcome the objection in your actual sales flow, in the questions you ask, then when it's time to ask for the money, it's a more natural, hey, so at this point in time, this seems like a good fit. Would you agree? And it's easy to then ask them, so how do you want to handle the transaction? Do you use check, credit card, cash? What's the best way for you to go about taking care of it? They say, oh, you know what? I normally use credit card or I do this. Great. Go ahead and get that out for me. I'm excited for you. Let's go ahead and get the process started. I'm going to send you over. And then you just start naturally having a simple conversation. But most people complicate it because they feel like they have to pull people into the close versus guiding them through the whole sales conversation where they naturally want to do it themselves. So if people want to learn more about what I teach, they can just go to Boyd Hoffmann, which is my name, boydhoffmann.com. And all the information is on that website, and they can click around, they can see what works best for them and just get to know me a little bit better. But my philosophy is simplify the sale, don't complicate it.
Simplify the sale, don't complicate it. Awesome, my man. So that's gonna be the end of the show, boy. Thank you for coming and thank you for sharing this wonderful stuff with us. I tell you, it means a whole lot, man. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the time. And yeah, I enjoyed it. I love talking about